Hello to another episode of Exploring You, our podcast that helps you navigate the personal development jungle. Today, we are talking to Shaun West, who set up his own security company after leaving the British forces. At some point, he had to close down his business due to unforeseen external events. And he shares with us how that really impacted his overall well-being and mental health. Learn from his can-do attitude and how you can turn around a challenging situation that in hindsight was a blessing in disguise. If you are an entrepreneur going through a challenging time right now, or if you are toying with the idea of setting up your own business, then this episode is for you.
Okay, hello again, everybody, for another round of our podcast, talking all matters health and well-being and mental health. My name's Darren Siegenberg of the Mind Course EIC and Elysium NLP.
And I'm Alexandra, nature coach and forest bathing guide.
Okay, and today's guest, we have a good mate of mine, Shaun West. Hi, Shaun. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Great to be here.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, because I know you're a busy guy. I've seen all your posts on LinkedIn, Facebook, and everywhere else. I think it's like a wanted poster with your face everywhere, isn't it? You know, it's everywhere. So the first thing, mate. So, what was you going to say?
What the missus says as well.
Right, mate. Well, first and foremost, who are you? Who are you?
So my background is I'm ex-British Forces, former British paratrooper. I left the parachute regiment, became a bodyguard, and was fortunate enough to travel to many different countries throughout my time as a paratrooper and as a bodyguard. And I then went on to set up my own business within the security industry, where I was taking on my own contracts, consulting for different individuals, as well as employing different people. I built an extremely successful business, which got hit, unfortunately, about a year and a half ago when Russia invaded Ukraine, and a lot of my clients were Russian-based. So it had a big knock-on effect, which triggered a change in my life, I guess, which, whilst it was very, what's the word? It was a tough time, because I had a lot of people I had to let go, bills to pay. But when I look back now, it was actually one of the best things that happened to me, because whilst I was running the business and it was extremely successful, if it had continued, I probably never would have stepped away, because the financial rewards were great, right? But once you've stepped away and you've got the benefit of hindsight, I look now, I was working 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. That's what it felt. Where now I have more time, more reflection, and I've got on a new path where I'm kind of helping business owners who are in the same position as me, starting out, building their own businesses within the security industry.
Brilliant. And it's quite a change, isn't it, from going from the CP side and working on the, as we call it, on the circuit, to then going into coaching and talking to people now and trying to get them more motivated in what they want to do.
Yeah, it is an interesting change. But when I look back through my career, both in the forces and as a business owner, I've kind of always considered myself as a bit of a coach anyway. Where I've always had a can-do attitude, where I see the best in people, whether you're talking up to the CEO or down to whoever, the new recruit, the cleaner, whatever it is, you can speak to people on the same level. It goes a long way. So I've always seen myself as a bit of a coach and in helping people and in the communication that I deliver.
And talking of communication, and I mean, people are going to think, well, why is Shaun on the show tonight when it's all about mental health? One thing I thought about this is communication, and one thing that got me into doing NLP was the communication in the workplace, and communication with people overall. Communication isn't just about a two-way conversation with somebody, but it's about the communication you have with yourself, isn't it? So yourself working, and you've done NLP now, haven't you?
I have, yes. I'm an NLP master practitioner. I've just finished that recently, which, it really opens your mind to what's out there, right? Tools that you can use as an individual on yourself as well as with other people.
Yeah, and the key thing is that communication. When it's whether you're talking yourself out of work or you're talking yourself in the stress. Like you said, I mean, you must have had the conversations with guys. I mean, we've spoken to Jeanette, who works in HR, and the conversations she's had to have when it comes to redundancies. The challenge. Did you have many challenges yourself when it came to letting the guys go?
I think overall, I like what you said, actually, the communication with yourself, because that's one thing you learn with NLP. You can talk yourself out of a lot of things. One of the things I've always had a fear with is public speaking. As I've grown up, I've always been quite introverted as a child, and any time where there was any spotlight on me, I've kind of shied away from it. And even so much as joining the army, you gain more confidence. You come out of that shell a bit more, right? And then becoming a bodyguard business owner, you gain a bit more confidence. But still, to stand out there in front of people and talk, it terrifies the life out of me. And that's no matter what I've achieved in life, whatever successes, it's still kind of haunted me. And it's not until I discovered NLP, and you start looking, I once done a talk in front of some people, and it went wrong, and you see the whole room speeds up and slows down, and it's like the world closing in, like a rabbit in the headlights. And then I remember apologizing and saying, "I'm really sorry, that didn't go great." But I remember the person who I was talking to, and he went, "Shaun, it was great. You could say you were a bit nervous, but that was fantastic. If you do it a few times, you'll be fine." And then when you learn NLP techniques and you stand and you talk, and when you put yourself in the eyes of the people who are in the audience and watching you, when you're delivering that talk or presentation, if it's going wrong, you feel like the whole world's coming down on top of you, right? But when you flip that script and you put yourself in the eyes of the audience, all you can see up there is a guy who's there trying to bring you some value. And it's great when you look at it like that, when you're just seeing the person, you're thinking, wow, why are you so, I don't know, scared to do that? It's this big beast that gets built up within ourselves. We tell ourselves, and actually, the more exposure you give yourself to it, the more it gets broken down, right? And the more competent you become. And it's all about that. Confidence comes through competence. And if you're not doing it, and if you're shying away from it, then it gets bigger and bigger, the hurdle to cross. So I think any fears, you've just got to kind of lean into them and start taking action and break it down.
I remember we were doing our metaphors on my first practitioner course for NLP, and I'm writing these things, and I'm absolutely shaking, thinking I've got to stand in front of 10 people to do these metaphors, and I can't do it. But stick me in a volatile situation. I've worked as a bodyguard, I've worked as a debt collector, I've worked on the doors in Manchester. Fine, I'm happy, but stick me in front of a couple of people to do a brief talk. And I was like, no, I'm petrified. I don't want to do it. And it was building that confidence to be able to do it. And I'm holding on to the notes, and my hands were shaking like mad. It's terrifying to start with. But like you say, you just build up and build up. And it's that self-talk that can actually break us down. I talking to a guy on a train once on the way down south. And a guy was talking, he was actually going for an interview, and he'd got off at Crewe, but he came down from Scotland, and we just got talking as I do. I always start talking to people, scare living daylights out of them. But he talked to some stranger on a train, and he's like, I'm going down for an interview, but I'm not sure if I want the job or did it. And he was coming up with this, and I went, well, you're not going to get the job then, are you? And he said, you've not got it. He said, how do you know that? I said, well, because you just talked yourself out of it already. So going into something, it's that self-talk, the communication you have with yourself is just as important as it is trying to talk to a client, who's a multimillionaire. It's that self-talk you have in order to be able to move forward.
Yeah, no, I absolutely get all that. And going back to when you mentioned the public speaking and talking in front of 10 people, and you were terrified, but in a more, I don't know, dangerous situation, you weren't worried at all. I totally get that, because that's where the confidence comes through competence, right? Because you train to work on the doors, or train to be a bodyguard and look after people. And it's one of the things I talk about, actually. So I can honestly say, when I was a paratrooper bodyguard, and when I was working in hostile zones, I can honestly say, when I was out there, I never felt any fear, which sounds a bit crazy, right? And people are like, well, yeah, whatever. But I actually didn't. I actually felt almost excited that I was in an environment where I could, utilize your skills that you'd been taught. But the one thing I didn't realize until I came back from them countries, I never held any fear whilst I was there. But when I had my first child, and the second child was when I decided I wanted to come back, because you put a lot of stress on the family life at home, and I didn't realize I was carrying any stress or fear or anything like that. But I remember being on the plane coming back from it was Afghanistan, Dubai to London, and I made a conscious decision there and then that I'm not going to come back. I'm just going to make it work in the UK. I'm going to set up, start working for people in the UK, find a job. I didn't have a job to go to, right? I made the conscious decision there and then, I'm not coming back. And I was on the Emirates flight, and I remember I said to the lady, I said, could I have a whiskey? When she came around with the drinks, and I had a whiskey. And then, wow. And I had another one. And I honestly, the what's the word there? The built up pressure that you didn't know you had when you're out there. So I was carrying the fear. I was just trained. I was confident in what I did, that I was able to mentally handle the struggles or whatever it is that came with that role. But at that point where I knew I wasn't coming back, it came out, right? I was like, wow, because I have lost friends out there, friends who've lost limbs and all of this sort of thing. And I looked at myself, and I was very fortunate. So even coming back, and I knew I was coming back with no job, I felt in a lot better place than some of these guys that I'd worked with. And I realized I did carry the fear, but I guess it's part of the conditioning you get, right, as a paratrooper. When I was in the parachute, and I put it down to that training, you get taught you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. And so when you're going out that gate, you are the best, and you just deal with whatever happens in that time, right? But it's at that point when you come back and it comes out, then you realize you are carrying things. And if you never let them out, I guess they can build up into the bigger things over time, right? And that's a lot of where the PTSD comes in with soldiers who've been in high pressure environments for an extended period of time, and they haven't had that air gap to enable them to come down and, I guess, regather their thoughts and relax and process everything correctly.
Do you think, I'm going to go out on a limb here, mate, do you think it's more of an acceptance that you had, that you were carrying that fear? So when we talk about one of the key things for mental health, the first thing I say is, have you accepted you've got an issue? Have you truly accepted you've got an issue? So could you say that that was an acceptance on your part to say, yes, I am carrying the fear? And that's what made you, I've seen people literally physically either drain, or the shoulders just drop as they've taken a massive weight off the back, when they truly accept they've got a problem. Could that be the same for you?
Yeah, I think it probably was. I knew, going out the gate in some of these places, you might not come back, right? So,
yeah. In reality, that's what it is, isn't it? You've got to be real about it.
And I don't know if it's just, you tune your mind to not think about that part of it. And then it's I remember coming through something when you come through the gate, and we've been in, say, Kandahar city, and then you come back through the gates, and And I experience that same relief as well. Sometimes when you come through, you're like, it's like the release valve of, right, I'm back, we're good. And it's, I don't know how to put it in words, but yeah, I guess it is an acceptance of, you have been in a dangerous situation, been there for a prolonged period as well. And I'm very fortunate to be where I am. And yeah, I guess there was a bit of acceptance there, that a bit of acknowledgement at that time of what I've been through and how lucky I was.
Yeah, it's not a lot of people can have that experience, and you are on, your attention is to detail is 100% every minute of the day, especially in those environments, but when you're in the forces, you're expected to be at 99 to 100% ready at any moment in time, and the amount of stress that you're under for that is immense. You can't be at, anybody in the civvy world wouldn't, to some extent, would expect to appreciate that, that you're in that situation 100% every minute of every day.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I liken that as well too, so bringing it back into the civilian world. It could be a business owner who's an entrepreneur who's taking the risks of, they really believe in their product or their service or whatever it may be, and they're going out on a limb because they really believe in themselves. And you have guys and girls who believe in it so much, and they remortgage their house and they take on this huge risk, and it has to work. And you get the tension, right? So if you've made your mortgage now 3 times what it was, you have to make it work. You're under that pressure that's constantly pulling down on you. And if it doesn't go right, it can be a pretty traumatic experience. People lose houses and lose friends, family, whatever it is, through risks that they've taken. So it's not necessarily just something that a soldier faces. There is people in business who face similar situations. And like I said, when my business took a big hit, just over 1.5 years ago, due to the Russia-Ukraine situation, that was pretty traumatic at the time. I had a lot of guys to pay, no way of being able to get that money back in, and you're taking that on the chin. I had a lot of guys to pay that I paid myself. Never received that money back. Don't know when I'll receive that money back, if I ever will. But yeah, it was pretty traumatic at the time, very stressful, and just glad that with time to heal, all right, the more time you spend away from it, the more clarity and visual you get of the situation. And I actually see it as a blessing now.
Mm. And what did you do to get more into balance again? Because I recall, like with Corona, I set up a business in 2015, traveling like safaris to Africa. This is what I organized. And 2019, third business year, finally over the hump. I thought, oh, great, now it's working. And then Corona came. And it's really, like you said, a very stressful and traumatic experience, because as an entrepreneur, you are always worried, okay, where is the next customer coming from? Then you get a customer, the first customer, then your mind goes like, oh, yeah, that was just good luck. Now it's getting more difficult, or you are always very self-critical. So what did help you to stay into balance and reduce the stress levels?
I think I've been fortunate. I've got a really supportive partner who is very supportive of what I do. She's in a similar space, delivers coaching also, but in a different niche. So she's been great to bounce ideas off and I guess provide the sanity check when things are going. And I think you always come back to one of the first things you learn on NLP was the map is not the territory. So however you see things in your eyes, somebody else is seeing it in a different way. And I think whilst you're living it and breathing it, and it's really stressful, when you take yourself out of the situation and look, and you can say, look, it's just a point in time. My business has taken a hit. I'm still young. I'm healthy. Well, maybe not so young anymore, but I'm still fit. I'm still healthy. I've still got a lot of mileage and things that I can offer, whether it's in the same game or in another industry. I've invested six figures in personal development, in different trainings that I've done, and that doesn't just disappear overnight. You have a lot of tools and skills that I can experience that I can offer to other businesses. And I think you're right. The likes of Corona, and as a sole business owner, you get some new clients, you're on it up. Then if you go through a period of where you don't get any inquiries, then you're going it down, and it'd be like a roller coaster, right? And I think it's just trying to maintain the belief of where you're going and where you want to be, and just having that picture in your mind all of the time. And as long as you're making small, consistent steps towards achieving that, I think that keeps you on the straight and narrow.
Maybe you get your missus on the podcast, mate, if she's doing coaching.
I'm sure she'd welcome it. Scary stories about me.
So, what I mean, it's quite good what you're saying, and it's that this is why we wanted you on here, is that stress of in business, and what how the challenges that you have. It isn't just on you, it impacts your family and everything else. It's what would you say to somebody, if they are going through that at the moment? What would be the main message you would send to that person?
I think when I look back through my career, I've been very focused, I've been very driven. I've had ups, downs, successes. And I think when you are growing your business, I think it's extremely important to celebrate your wins. And the reason I mentioned that, I think which is very important. I remember having a conversation with actually someone Darren, John Moss, give him a shout out.
Yes.
For someone that we previously worked with, and my business was on a real upward curve. I was making some great financial rewards, and I was kind of working flat out. And he asked me, what are you trying to achieve? Oh, why are you working so hard? And I was like, well, it's great. I'm saving all of this money that way I can make home a better place. I can have a nicer home. I can put some money away for the kids. I can do all of these nice things. And I remember he asked me a question which it hits, and he says, you went silent. He said, Shaun, what happens if when your kids are 25-year-old and you say, yeah, I built this great successful business, and thank you for that little nest egg you've put away from me for me, but actually all I wanted was your time. I remember when he said that, it actually hit me, and I was like, wow, I'd never even considered it, thought about it, contemplated it. But when you look at it like that, and I think at the time it sowed a seed in me where I thought, yeah, I do need to take time out, and I do need to realize where I've got to. So you need to, even if you are still working in the business, and it does require your time, because maybe you're still only an individual running that business, and you have to give it that time, but you have to take time out as well and enjoy the successes of what you're building with those that you love. Otherwise, why do it? You'd be a very lonely person if you don't take them successes and that knowledge. And it keeps you on track as well. If you think in 2 months' time, yeah, I've had a really good couple of months, I'm going to have a nice weekend away with my partner or fam, whatever it might be. It might be just a small treat like that, but you have something to look forward to, right? And you've achieved that through the effort you've put in. If you don't do that and you're too headstrong and focused and continue working, what are you working for? We all go to the same place. You can have a big bank balance, but you can't take it with you, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think there's also that self-care as well, isn't there? You know, when you take that break away, you are, excuse me, the constant working, like you say, 25 hours a day. I know how hard you worked, because, you know, I've worked with you and for you. So, you know, I know your background and what effort you put in. And as good as those rewards are at the end, it's whether you're going to be able to sustain the level of consciousness to be able to carry on doing that throughout your life. So you do have to have that self-care as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. You see so many people as well who work so hard all of their lives. They work to 60, 70-year-old, whatever it may be, flat out. And then as soon as they stop, their body begins to deteriorate, their mind, because they haven't got that thing that keeps them going, right? So I think you need to take that time and actually have some hobbies, whatever it may be. I think I started doing jiu-jitsu, which I'd never done before. But what I really liked about it was that was an hour and a half or whatever the sessions were, where I was uncontactable. I didn't have the phone in the pocket. And what I liked about it, I remember when I first went, and bearing in mind I was head of security for one of the richest men in the world as a bodyguard, and I was opposite a young 15-year-old boy who was like a matchstick. And he said to me, "How long have you been coming?" I said, about 3 weeks. And he said to me, "Okay, I'll go easy on you." And I started laughing, thinking, really? And I remember we squared off to do a roll, as they call it in jiu-jitsu. I remember when we locked up and he just grabbed my arm and swept me on the floor, and I was tapping on my back. And so then you reset and you go again. And then he did it again, and he did it 3 times, and it was really humbling. And I was like, wow, it's really interesting. But that hour and a half of not having the phone and being able to switch off was really good, because it was fitness. It was letting out stress, because you're rolling around, and it's like chess, trying to work out. I enjoy things like chess that, challenge your brain. And I guess jiu-jitsu is like, it's not a brute force. It's all about strategies and how you can work with the other person. But yeah, you've got to have them hobbies to get that release from the work environment.
It's interesting you talk about the hobby thing. I remember working for a company, the bus company, First Buses, some years ago. And I was talking to one of the guys, and it was around safety behaviors, changing people's behavior and mindset when it comes to safety when you're traveling on a bus, or even in the depot, working as an engineer. And they were delivering this Be Safe course, and there was 2 guys that were delivering it. I was talking to one of them, and obviously he got to know my background from doing the coaching. And he said, I'd love to be able to do coaching, Des. It's a bit late for me to start learning. I went, okay, so how old are you? And I think he said he was about 54, 55 at the time. And I went, is that it? You give up already? I've probably done more learning in the last 5 years than I did in 5 years of high school. There's no stopping. And then on the flip side, you've got another guy who's 60 odd years of age. He's got 1 year left before retirement. And he says to me, Darren, he says, I think my wife's going to divorce me when I retire. I said, why is that? He said, I'm never going to be around. I've got a guitar class. I've got a piano class. I've got German class. I've got photography class. I've got this, that. And he had more stuff to do than he did when he was at work. So in the comparison, you saw somebody who's close to retirement having all this stuff to do after, and you've got somebody who's already put an end to his life at 55.
Yeah.
And then I've talked to people, we were working for a group that were dealing with people in the horse racing industry, whether they were trainers, jockeys, stable hands, whichever the way it will be, and whether they've been injured. Some of them were seriously injured, and what could they do, because they just had that love of horses. And I was really pressuring this guy. And he's going, I don't want to do it. I can't do this. I can't do. And I was pushing him. And eventually he's just like, well, I just can't do it. I've got things to sort out. But the one thing I said to him, I said, so at 60, he said, I just want to get to retirement, and then I'm all right. I said, and your life ends at 66 then, does it? Everything stops. And it actually made him stop and think. And then next minute he's gone out and got himself a job.
Because
to think that's the end. when essentially you could say it's the beginning.
I actually, when I've done my coaching accreditation, and you have your classes that you have, and then you get put into breakout rooms with the other students on the course. And one of the first guys that I got put in a room with, he was 72-year-old, who was just embarking into coaching, and I thought it was absolutely amazing. I'm actually might be collaborating with him shortly. So he's now got a purpose, a mission to that. I can't remember the numbers, so I'll be lying, but something like 60% of small businesses fail within 3 years. And he's led a life of building businesses, and he just wants to see people succeed, and he wants to bring them numbers down, and he's creating tools and strategies to be able to do that. And that's his goal purpose at 72-year-old, to pass on his knowledge and wisdom to these small business. And it's fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to start working with him on it. I think it'll be great.
There'd be a lot of wealth of experience and knowledge there for sure.
Absolutely.
That shows again how important mindset is. What to do with your life as well. Yeah, brilliant.
Exactly.
And I also just want to say something to the stress level, releasing it through exercise. And I find that so important as well, because stress is, if you don't release that stress energy, it keeps getting stored in your body. And I find it so interesting. Animals in the wildlife, when they are in a stressful situation, they automatically shake the energy out, and we don't do that. So it's so important. I really want to stress that, to get physical active if you are in stressful situations, to bring yourself into balance again and release this stress energy from your body. Because if you're holding on to it, that's when diseases occur as well, of too much stress, too much cortisol in your system.
You were totally right. And one of the things, when we go back to where I was, say, in Afghanistan, and I told you I was storing this stress, but I didn't know about it. And then I had that release where it came out. And one of the things I knew as a business owner, every year when I have to go through different contract renewals with different clients or whatever it may be, and when I had large clients that had a significant impact on my business, I remember the contract used to get renewed on the 1st of January every year, or whatever it was. And I noticed that every year my stress levels would go up, and because the negotiations were going on. I remember getting, it was like psoriasis type thing, which came out on my shoulders, and it only came out at this contract period. And it was just the stress that builds up in your body coming out. And, I think there's science behind people who don't have something to release the stress, and they just can't, these business owners, and, they have heart attacks, or it grows into cancer or something like that, because they don't recognize that stress and take action themselves to try and release that through whatever it is, exercise, hobby, just taking time out, right? That restoration piece of having a holiday, whatever it may be. And we need to do it. And I think some people don't realize it until they're too late. And I'm 44 now. And it took me into my 30s before I started realizing you need to do this. And I think many times things in life happen for a reason. And even though I knew about this stress and what I was going through building my business, I still didn't step away from it. I still leaned in, because so even though that conversation I had with John, with what happens if your kids said all they wanted was your time, in my mind I still thought, but I can still make the good things good for them by what I can provide. And I feel like I can, I don't know, talk my way out of that, because I've done it with good intention. But if what happened didn't happen, I probably would still be in there. But I did set a time limit on, I had a goal which was 45. That was going to be me finished, done. And that was me, I don't know, starting my new life of playing golf and whatever that may be. So all it's done is put my plans, shifted them to the right. The goal hasn't changed. I'm just attacking it in a different way.
And that's a key thing, isn't it? It's two things there, twofold. It's obviously having the goal, but also being able to be flexible. That it may shift. You've set yourself a target, and if you're specific with your target on your goal, even tying it down to the day and the time, you can aim for that. You also have that flexibility to say, well, I might not actually, when you get nearer to the point, something might need to be changed, but it doesn't stop you from carrying on with your goal. You can still achieve it. You just need to have that flexibility to be able to just say, okay, we can give it another month or another year, but I know I'm still going to make that.
Mm-hmm. And the big goal, whatever that may be, it's break it down and achieve the smaller parts of it, and you're making progress, right? If you just look at that big one, maybe it's daunting. When it's so daunting and you're not achieving it, you feel like you're not getting closer. It's going to be really hard to reach. But when you break that down, and it's maybe, I don't know, create the website, create some marketing copy, create whatever it may be. Once you take each of them things off, all of them come together towards reaching the big goal.
Talking of which, mate, it was talking about the small steps. We mentioned part of the show is the tipping point. So when you look at the book by Malcolm Gladwell, The Tipping Point, it's about those small. Where do you get to a certain point to start realizing you need to make a change? And to make the change is making those small steps. You don't have to go massive, but you can just take those little bit steps at a time. And each time you achieve something, you're more likely to move on to something else next. What was the tipping point for you to go from? I mean, obviously, you've mentioned already the paras to security. What was the tipping point for you to go from security to coaching?
I think the obvious tipping point is what happened with the, my main client base, with the being Russian based, which had the domino effect where I had to stop trading with them, and that turned me to something else. What I could have done is stayed as a security provider and providing that service and just go and find new clients. But I think what I'd realized was how much stress had come with building that business and everything involved with it. And I felt like I needed a new start, just a bit of air gap between what I was doing to something completely different. And I did actually think, okay, I'm going to leave the industry completely, do something completely different. And I want to do that coaching. I like working with entrepreneurs hugely, but then there's so many coaches out there. It's a saturated market, right? Who are catering to that market. And what I realized with my background and knowledge in the security industry and flipping into coaching, I felt like I had a lot to offer to individuals and business owners there in that space. So I think the tipping point for me was definitely the catalyst, which was the Russia-Ukraine situation, which impacted my business. But why coaching? I think I genuinely, Darren, you've known me a lot of years, I really like helping people.
Yeah.
And with my background and experience, I just thought I could do that through the coaching space.
What would you say was the tipping point for people, for the clients or the people that you've met so far? What has been, where's the catalyst with them? What's the tipping point for them? And when specifically do you think is a time for them to change? Do they have to wait to that point that they get to so desperately either ill or, at worst thinking they've got to end things? Where do you think is the best point for the tipping point for them to change?
I think everybody is a unique individual and they deal with things in different ways, right? Some people have huge capacity to take on, massive, huge projects and manage so many different people, and it doesn't affect them. Some people have, the slightest thing, I employ one person and then their head is all over the place because it's huge stress by employing people. And I think it's knowing your strengths and, more importantly, knowing your weaknesses. I knew my strengths, I had a huge capacity for, I don't know, I could take on lots of projects. I could think outside of the box with them, and I could deliver them. Weaknesses, I was scared to speak in front of public. So I kind of avoided that. But what I've realized, that held me back in so many ways. So now I've kind of leaned into it, and I'm becoming better at it. But the tipping point is, everyone's going to have their own unique tipping point. But I think as soon as you start feeling that stress, there's no awards for just carrying it on your shoulders. You know, there's lots of people out there. And what I think a good thing to do, if it's in business, is surround yourself with good people, you know, your peers, people that are can-do people, because, you know, you can talk it out with them, and sometimes you can get a completely different perspective on something that you think is a huge problem. And then, you know, speaking to someone like me, you, whoever it may be, a coach who can actually ask you questions and make you see things in a different light, can have a huge impact. You know, lots of people might go into therapy, which may be great to help with a number of different things, whether it's post-traumatic stress, breakups, whatever it may be. But I think there's a lot of benefits to seeking a coach, because their focus is forward. And if you're reaching a tipping point where it's going to become very stressful in your business, or you don't want to keep talking about that stressful thing, you want to be thinking, how am I going to get out of this, and raise your head above the parapet? What opportunities can I take to get out of this? Because if you keep thinking, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be doing this job, then you're going to get more of the same, right? Where if you start thinking, I want that promotion, or I want to create my own business, then all of the thoughts and processes you put in place in your life will go towards that. But there's a saying, isn't there, where your mind goes, or where your focus goes, energy flows, I think it is. Mm. If you're focusing on the negative, that's where you're going to stay. Whereas if you flip that switch and start thinking, yeah, I can actually make something happen here, then you start seeing all the positive roots out of where you're at and the situation you're in. And I think, so the tipping point, different for everybody, but I think everybody knows when they're at that tipping point, when they could reach for support. And it's whether, are you a alpha male, as which we work in an industry, security is full of alpha males who don't want to ask for support, ex-soldiers, they think it's weak, I can't ask anybody, but it's not weak. Everybody is a human being, right? Nobody's has superpowers or whatever it may be. There's no shame in asking for that support or help from your peers or from people who are trained and can give you that support in a different perspective.
Absolutely, mate. Brilliant. That is very well put. Very well put. Right. And it's the message we're trying to get out there is asking. You know, there's no shame in talking. You know, say we've all come. I mean, I used to think about therapy, and it's like, lie down, tell me about childhood. Don't think so. But when I did NLP, it was like, wow, you know, why didn't I find this earlier? You know, and you become more open to different ideals, you know, different models. You know, you've gone, you know, I just wanted communication to start with. And I'd looked at communication courses, I'd looked at psychology, I'd looked at cognitive behavioral therapy, transactional analysis, all these, but nothing seemed to resonate until I saw NLP. And it was like something triggered. And I thought, well, I'm going to give this a go. And it you know, at first I thought it's not going to work. And then because I did a weekend course, a free weekend course in London with one company, and I thought, I've just spent 1,200 quid on a course that I'm not going to use. And then when I did that course, the full course with my trainer, completely different view about it, and it opened my eyes to myself, as well as what I could use NLP for. But it is about asking and finding out what's going to work for you. And not everything works. Like you say, it's not one size fits all. You know, all these people that we'll have on the podcast will give some sort of intuition about what they do and what that, you know, whether it be coaching or hypnosis and what it's about. You've got to give it a go. you've got to go out there and try it and see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, then fair enough. But run the course. Don't just take a couple of lessons or a couple of sessions with a coach and think, well, I'm not going to get anything out of this. I use the analogy of taking a course of medication from your doctor. If you give a course of medication, you've got to take every tablet before you get better. The first two ain't going to get you cleared. It's the same with coaching, counseling, anything. You've got to stay with the course in order to get something out of it at the end, and something will come from the end. It will. Something will trigger. You just got to find that, and you ain't going to find it in the first two sessions. So stick with it, and you will find something from it.
No, you're totally right. And so along the same lines, but slightly off, I had a session yesterday which was really interesting and I guess I was getting questioned or coached about my background and running a stressful business and taking time out. So exactly what we're talking about now. And the coach reframed it on a scale of 1 to 10. How healthy do you consider yourself? Or how fit, healthy? And I gave a number, and I said, I feel like I'm doing enough now. I'm no athlete, but I'm in shape. And how healthy are you? The diet choices you make, and it's quite healthy, but I like to eat out. I've spent a lot of life traveling from home and eating fast food because you're on the move with work and travel. And she tried to get me to change, and I said, I'm really happy with where I'm at. I can see things that I can change and make better, but also I enjoy what I enjoy. I don't feel I'm so far off the mark. And the way she put it in my terms, and she said, so you're a business owner, right? I goes, yes. She goes, you have a pension? I says, yes. And you put money in your pension every month or every year towards when you reach retirement, right? I said, yes. And she says, you need to start looking at your health and nutrition as like a pension, because unless you start investing now and eating correctly now, when you get to 72, 74, whatever the age may be, if you haven't invested that time now, then you don't have that pension that's going to see you through. That's when you start getting the illnesses, that knock into other illnesses, and you have to really start caring for yourself now. And just the way she put it and framed it, see it as in business terms as a pension, to some people who don't see that because they're so one-track minded on the business, I thought it was a really nice way to think about it. And certainly something I'll use with my clients if I'm coaching them in that area.
Yeah, it's about reframing the situation, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just want to touch, because it's such a nice example as well, touch on the self-care aspect. Like, especially, like, for example, if something is wrong with your car, if you hear noise, you go to the mechanic straight away, you get it fixed, no matter how much it costs, But if your body signals you something, you don't listen, you just keep going. And I think it's so important to invest money and care in ourselves as well to get to the age of enjoying retirement and putting the effort in every day.
Yeah, I think men are the worst at it as well when we're talking about alpha males. So when I was 21-year-old, I went to Sierra Leone when I was a paratrooper, and I came back, and when we come back from whatever country, you've got all the cleaning, the weapons, sorting all the kit out before you're allowed to go home. And I think on the Friday before we were stood down to go home, the families, we'd done a 10-miler, and I was in the machine gun platoon, so we had the big machine gun tripods to carry. I remember doing this 10-miler, and I didn't feel good, and I was dropping back on this. It didn't feel, and I finished it, but my legs felt dead. I remember speaking to the medic at the end. I says, look, I don't really feel good. And he says, oh, take some paracetamol. Maybe you've got the Bengali flu. And so I'd done it. So bear in mind, I'd come back from Sierra Leone. I then done a 10-mile tab with heavy carry with lots of weight. I then drove from Colchester to Newcastle, which was a 5-hour drive. I was still feeling ill. Next day I was in bed, I was shivering, I was really bad. And I knew I wasn't well, but I never used to go to a doctor or anyway, I just see it out. And then I remember seeing my dad at the time. He said, "Shaun, you really don't look good. You should go to hospital." And I said, "No, I'll be fine. I'll be fine in a few days." And then he actually got me in the car, drove me to hospital, told them what was wrong with me. And the doctor says, "Oh, maybe you've got a water infection or whatever it was." And I just told them where I'd come from. And I thought, yeah, no problem. I'll be fine. And then as we walked up the hospital, I passed out and I woke up. So I lived in South Shields, but I woke up in Newcastle in the tropical diseases ward, and I'd contracted malaria, but the strain I had was called P. falciparum, which I think is the most lethal form of malaria, but it's the curable form. And I remember them saying, some people die within 72 hours of having that strain of the disease. I think I'd been ill for, it's probably 6-7 days that I'd been ill, and I'd done a 10-mile and drove 5 hours home and continued to just go about my life before I woke up in hospital. And they said the only reason you kind of survived that was because you were so young, fit and healthy. But you don't always get them chances, right? if you're not feeling great, then that's why the doctors are there. Or if you have a health plan, Bupa or the hospital, whatever it is, we have to use these things, especially as we're aging, more so.
It is mad. Like I say, especially men, we just go, yeah, we'll crack. It'll be all right tomorrow. It's just a cold. And then it comes out 10 times worse, but it's the same with your stress levels as well, isn't it? The more, we can brush off a cold. Well, some can, most of them call it man flu, but, you can have the paracetamol or Beecham's and that's it. You're fine. But when it comes to your stress levels, it's a little bit more, it is a bit more serious to some extent, isn't it? Because where those, like you say, they build up and build up. And like you say, you end up with psoriasis, and how much impact that has just from a stress-related environment. When we go beyond that, that's when we start looking at people taking their own life, because they've got to that level. So, and this is the point where I'm saying about the tipping point. You're absolutely right. Everyone's an individual, but it's how far do we have to get to that tipping point to realize that enough's enough. We don't have to wait to that time. As soon as we start recognizing and accepting that we've got an issue, then it's the time that we can go, right, I need to go and do something about it. And it's not a weakness going to talk. I've talked to many people. You know me, Shaun, and Alexander's spoken to a couple of people. I think she's kind of got a different view of me now at the moment. But you do have that alpha male, that macho side of things, and you think you can get on with it, and you can do. But you've got to a point where enough's enough, and you've got to be able to talk to somebody, because it will go worse if you don't.
Yeah, and I think the key word you just said there is the recognition. And when you recognize it, it's the taking action in whatever method that is, whether it's talking to somebody, whether it's going out for a walk or whatever that may be for you, whatever kind of lets that pressure out, that release valve. But yeah, it's the recognition. And sometimes people recognize it, but they don't take the action or the steps to make things better. And then, of course, it just builds and builds. And it'll come out in your body in illnesses, or whatever it may be. Or, as you said, worst case scenario, people find it too much and they sadly take their own lives.
Well, I remember I was working on the doors at the time, and I just finished a CP job, close protection job with a couple of youngsters, and it was full on. That ended, and I came back to working on the doors because it was in between work, and I hadn't realised it. I hadn't seen it, but it was the guy that had my oppo on the door, and and he actually called my wife at the time, my ex-wife now. But he phoned her and he said, you've got to have a word with Darren. You know, he's, I don't know what's wrong with him. He said, but, you know, if somebody says hello to him the wrong way, he's going to rip their face off. You know, he's getting that aggressive. But he, you know, and he said it's the only, and what he was doing was saying, this is the only job he's got. He needs this job. And if he loses it, it's going to be even worse. But I didn't see that. And depression is something we kind of live with, we kind of go through, and we're living with it, but we don't recognize it at times. And I hadn't seen that. And it was only for Pete phoning up my ex-wife and saying, you need to have a word with Darren because he's just going to go mental at somebody. And I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it at all.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I guess that's another reason why we have coaches, because they, and things like that, because they see your blind spot. You know, when you're so involved in a project or whatever it may be, in the running of your business, you're stuck in the weeds. You can't see everything because you've focused on it that much. Little thing, you know. Then Darren, you could come and look at my business and go, well, Shaun, have you not thought about that? And then all of a sudden it's just, you know, a light bulb or whatever it might be, and you go, wow. But it was such a simple thing to see, but you can't see it because your brain is, I don't know, the equivalent of a hard drive, right? If you've got that much information and overload and overwhelm, once that's full, you can't see all of the opportunities. But once you, I don't know, defrag that and let some of it out, then there's more space and capability you have in taking on these projects or dealing with them in a better way.
Can't see the wood for the trees, as they say.
Exactly that.
That's where forest bathing helps you. You go into the forest and you see everything clearer.
And on cue comes in Alexander with that one. No, it's a great way you're putting it, mate. And I like the way it's said. It is about getting, like you say, you and I, we've been there in those environments where, you know, you're expected to have a certain persona, and stick with that. But it, you know, and people, I mean, we know from, you know, I'm not a military person, but I work with yourself and all my mates are ex-military, and that banter that they have, you know, it's, they'd rather ridicule you, you know, but it's a kind of banter and they might even say, you know, your head up your ass, you need to go and get something sorted. You know, they are quite often blunt and truthful, but you know, you don't have to have a certain persona to ask to go and get help.
No, absolutely not. And I think one of the other things you learn on NLP is that stepping into different social hierarchies, right? So when you have the alpha male or the beta, and sometimes when someone points it out to you and says, look, you know, you are an alpha male, maybe let's step into the shoes of someone from this social hierarchy. How would they deal with it? And they would deal with it in this way. And you start embodying that person, right? And you can say, oh, so what are the benefits of that? Is that a better way to handle it? And they go, yeah, probably is, or no. But you can take some lessons from each of them different. I'm losing the word. But you've got social hierarchies. But you get what I'm saying by seeing it in someone else's shoes and stepping into that. You get a different perspective and start realizing that maybe the way you're tackling things yourself is not always the best.
I agree. And it all comes down to empathy as well, you know, empathy for the other person. And I think that's what we are missing in today's world a bit, the empathy for the other person. And like you said, putting yourself in the other person's shoes to see life from their perspective. And also looking behind the scenes, okay, what is it that they are dealing with in their life? And to understand, or show understanding for that as well.
Yeah, nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors. Everyone has, you know, skeletons in the closet or whatever it may be that you don't want to bring out, or you don't want to show people. But it's life. We all have families. You know, you're born into families, and not everyone's gets on with their families or whatever it may be, but everyone has their own unique situation, and it's just being mindful of that, and like you say, empathetic with that.
You mentioned different people. It's like Edward de Bono's 6 hats. It's having a different hat for each person that you're having to work things on, which helps me look at different perspectives, and in everything in your life. Entrepreneur life then, Shaun. How does anybody become an entrepreneur?
Well, I think that's a big question. I mean, there's so many ways, right? There's so many paths you can go down. I mean, the world now, we're seeing things now that, remember when you and I were kids and you see these computers with ZX Spectrum with 2 bats going on each side of the screen with a ping pong ball. I mean, the advances now to where we are with the artificial intelligence and all of these things. You imagine now in another 20 years that it's going to be crazy. And with that development and things like that, it brings huge opportunities for youngsters of today. But are all the opportunities the right opportunities? I don't know. I think life's completely different now, right? The career paths are different. You have kids go to school now and say, I want to be a YouTuber, as opposed to getting a profession. Is that right?
So you don't want to work. You don't want to work for a living. I had that with my daughter. I said, I'm going to be a YouTuber. Oh, so you don't want to work for a living then? Yeah.
Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. We've changed, right? As a race, we're completely different now, and it's a legitimate career path for a lot of people. So opportunities to become an entrepreneur, I think there's a lot more now than what there used to be, and I think it's just having the mindset and knowing that there are opportunities out there, and if there's something you're really passionate about, then why not give it a go? Because if you don't, somebody else is going to do it, right? And what makes them better than you to be able to do that and make that work? And the answer is nothing. You can achieve anything that you set your mind to. Just break down, have small little goals, and you can achieve anything.
And you said,
also,
sorry
there. I just want to add something, because we talked about coaches. Oh, there are so many coaches out there. And I remember when I set up my travel business, my tax consultant was like, oh, that won't work. There are so many other people out there doing that. And I'm thinking, wow, that's a nice motivation. I just need you for tax consulting, but not telling me my business won't work. And eventually you also realize you are special, you are individual, and the way you might sell a trip or the way you might do the coaching is completely to other people. And we are all individual, and we all bring our special expertise, special empathy, special history with us, and we attract the right people that want to work with us. So I think don't be fearful if you are on the decision, should I set up a business? Don't let fear take over, thinking, oh, there are so many other people that do the same thing. You are special, and you will attract the right people that want to work with you.
And I think surrounding yourself with the right people is very important as well, because if you're surrounding yourself with people who have, I don't know, they call it a glass half empty as opposed to half full, they're going to put you down. And when I decided to join the army, I remember telling my family, and they started laughing. Oh, what are you going to do? I'm going to be a paratrooper, right? And there was actually a lot of laughter, ridicule. Thought, Shaun's going to be a paratrooper. And then when I'd done it, they were, of course, very proud. And then when I left, was looking to leave, and I said, I'm going to be a bodyguard. I remember looking at my daddy, and he said in his hands, who are you going to bodyguard? Who's a bodyguard? And it was just seeing the doubt in people's eyes and faces is what, okay, I'm going to be, and I went and done what was known as the best bodyguard course in the world at the time. And I thought, no, I'm going to be a bodyguard, and I'm going to be a successful bodyguard. And I did, and built my business. It was, turned it into a 7-figure business through just almost, what's the word? I'm going to show you, I use that
kind of proving a point, trying to prove a point.
But it's the same now with talking to people coming into the coaching industry, And people say it's a saturated industry. And yes, it is. But they aren't me. Like, they're not you. I offer something unique to the clients I work with that nobody else offers. Like, you offer something different too. And as long as you have that belief in yourself, I know I'm going to make it work. By hook or by crook, I will get there, because that's what I believe. And if I believed and I listened to other people and they said, oh, it's saturated, it's not going to work, then all of a sudden I'd close my business. I'd be going to get a job. I'd be going to work for somebody else that I wasn't happy being there, instead of just focusing that belief in yourself and actually making things work.
Yeah. And you talk about the stress of work and stuff like that, and setting up a business. But the key that if you do go out and speak to the right people like yourself, the coaching side, it doesn't have to be stressful. It can be enjoyable. When people talk about being nervous about going for a job interview, say, I always say, you're not nervous, you're excited, because the physical and mental side of things of nervousness is the same as being excited. When you think about being nervous, what happens? Well, your heart races, the hairs on your hands stick up, you start getting sweaty, your palms get all sweaty. And what happens when you think when you're excited, when you're going to go out? Oh, what happens? Well, your heart races, your hair stands up, your hands. It's exactly the same. So start changing your mindset from being nervous and stressed to being excited. Because it is an exciting. You could be getting a job, you could be getting that money you want, you could be going on the holiday you want to do, taking your family away. So there's the excitement of getting that job. And it's the same with business. Being excited about it, doesn't have to be as stressful as you think, because it's something you always wanted to believe in, you wanted to set up, and you have the belief that you can do it. So, looking forward to it, but having that right support and having a coach, or, whichever it may well be, having the right person behind you to talk it through, doesn't mean you have to have the stress and the strains of being able to set up your own business.
No, absolutely. I know there's one thing that you said there that's not true. I know,
Well,
looking at your video, your hair does not stand up.
That's why I said on the back of my hand. Yeah, cheers, mate. You had to go there with the hair, didn't you? Thanks.
But you're absolutely true. I mean, it's like the public speaking, the nervousness, the fear, and it's just reframing that. You're right. I'm excited. It's the same emotion. It's just how you perceive that emotion and put it to work for you. And it's the same in business as well. Business is tough, and starting new businesses, yeah, it can be a struggle, right? But so many people set up businesses and they think the work's going to come to them, or people are just going to come and buy their product. And I'll speak to people now and say, so what are you doing? Because they're struggling with their business, right? What are you doing now to sell? Well, I've been creating Canva graphics this week. I've been doing really nice logos on my spreadsheets. I've been like, okay, so, but what have you been doing to sell? And you can ask them 5 times and they're doing nothing. They think the work or business or whatever it may be is just going to come to them. And I think that's a lot of people in the coaching industry as well. I'm now a coach. People will just come to me and they don't. You have to tell people what you're doing, why you're doing it, and market yourself, and actually go out there and operate as a business. All businesses market themselves. You have to sell your services for people to know what you do and offer and provide. And it's having that belief and that guidance of somebody that can help you, I guess, get to where you need to be. There is support out there, and of course people can do it themselves, but some people might start a business now and their target is, I want to make £2 million by the end of 2025, and maybe they make it, maybe they won't. But by engaging the support of somebody who's kind of been there, done that in that space, is going to make your chances of hitting that an awful lot easier, an awful lot higher, should we say.
Absolutely. Thanks, mate. That's been enlightening. And it's always good to see you as always. But it's some of the stuff you've come up with today, I think, is, hopefully that hits home to people.
Your hair standing up.
I've got my hair standing up. I did my hair yesterday, mate, so I'm all right. 5 minutes of fame then, mate. It's your opportunity to tell the world, or the 1 or 2 people who are actually going to watch these podcasts, tell the world who you are, what you're doing, and your contact details.
Well, I guess you'll have show notes, so we'll put them in there. But my website where you can find me is www.shaunwest.co. That's SHAUNWEST.co. And I'm always terrible at telling myself. We've just been talking about having to sell yourself as a business, right? But my niche is helping security business owners and people who work in the industry grow their career or business. It's a journey I've been on for many years, and with all of the sort of coaching tools and life experience I have, I think I'm very well placed to be able to help people get to where they need to be in that sector. So if you want to reach out, that would be great. LinkedIn's probably the best place to connect. And I'm sure you guys will put them in the show notes. So yeah, feel free to reach out.
We will, mate. We will. So yeah, you want to contact myself? I'm at the Mind Core, spelt like that. The mindcore@gmail.com, and you can see us on Instagram, Twitter, or X as it's now known, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
And we talked so much about stress today. So if you want to reduce your stress level with the help of nature, then contact me on alexa@alexandrakatza.com.
Shout out to our supporters. We've got Promo Doodle, who do like little cartoons to promote your business. We've got the PBA, the Professional Bodyguard Association. If you're looking at training courses to get into security, you can also do your training. You can have a word with Shaun after. You've got the Burnley and District Motorcycle Club, who are a great bunch of people we've had support from, and Mira Gavasio, who's a freelance virtual designer. We've, as I say, we're setting up a project to set up a retreat and training centre for men and veterans with mental health. To donate to that, you can always go to our GoFund page and our Easy fundraising page. You'll see our contact details, and by all means have a look at the comments, make a comment, press the like button, not the dislike button, and share with everybody else. And again, Shaun, thanks for your time, mate. I know you're a busy guy, and it's been an absolute pleasure seeing you today again, mate, and having you on the show.
No problem.
Yes, great. Thanks for your
Cheers,
time.
mate. Thank
Ciao.
you.